I just spent the past 1,500 miles with my brand new 4th gen 2024 TRD Pro Tacoma, both on-road and off-road. I've been making some notes, and now it's time to give you guys some of my informed thoughts. What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things, and my 2024 Tacoma, it's looking a little bit different already. I'm currently up in the mountains near Ouray, Colorado, and I've spent the past 5 days out here really base camping out of this truck, and you'll notice I don't even have a tent or really anything done to this. The truck looks a little bit crazy right now because I did wrap it, of course. We have a new wheel and tire set on there. And I'm going to give you guys a rundown of how all of that stuff went. But most importantly, I've been spending a lot of time with this truck both on and off the road. So it's time for me to give you my informed thoughts. I don't like jumping out of the gate and just spewing a bunch of random thoughts because I like to spend time with vehicles before I'm giving you information on them. And so far, I'm still really enjoying this truck. There are definitely some pros and there are a few cons. But it really depends on what you are looking for in a vehicle and how you are going to use a setup like this. So first and foremost, let's talk about some of the modifications that I've done to this thing. Again, it looks a little bit crazy, but it's fairly stock. The very first thing that I did with this Tacoma is, of course, add a little bit of paint protection on there. So the very first stop for the Tacoma, of course, was to visit my buddy Jake at Lucid Wraps in Denver. Since I sold my 3rd gen, I kind of wanted to pay homage to that and, of course, keep all of my vehicles in my fleet kind of on brand. So this is going to gather some mixed opinions. I personally am a big fan of it, but I know it's not for everyone. I actually went with the underground color for this vehicle because, as you can tell, the door jambs here, it matches almost perfectly with the different types of colors in my wrap. If you guys have not seen this camo pattern before, maybe you are new to the channel, but this is my own custom camo. We dubbed it Psy Camo, of course. And it's a really kind of aggressive looking geometric shard camo. I do have my logo kind of hidden throughout here. And if you are interested in getting some of this vinyl for your own vehicle, you can actually order some of this vinyl printed on 3M directly through Lucid Wraps. So if you're interested, I will leave a link for that in the description down below. Now, the inspiration for the wrap on this truck was not only my 3rd gen Tacoma, but also the Supra. If you have seen my Toyota Supra right next to this before, you will know that we took a lot of inspiration, mainly the gloss side camo instead of the satin or matte that we used before, and also all of the orange accents. So we, of course, have some orange striping down the mirrors running into the handles as well. We also have the signature drip over on the side of my gas tank. Orange, of course, is my favorite color that I use on all of my vehicle builds because it really just breaks up all of the white, gray, black, and all of the kind of neutral tones that you will see in this camo. As far as some other accents go, we do have some orange striping up on the grill. This truck did come with the Pro grill, of course, so I didn't really have anything to change there. The grill is gloss black already, so Jake used his magic and kind of added some little accents across the front of the grill, and I think it really ties everything together. Outside of the side camo, some other things that you guys may notice are some TRD Pro features like the hood scoop up there on the front. We have the big fender flares here, which are about an inch wider than a non-pro model. The actual roof of the truck, and if we come all the way back to the tailgate, the very top stripe here, all of those components Jake wrapped in a textured black vinyl, so makes it look a little bit more rugged. It's probably a little bit more scratch resistant than this gloss camo will be. And the truck overall looks really aggressive from the factory, so just adding a little bit of accents here and there, it just really pulls everything together. This truck is already a head turner and it's still basically stock. So next up, we of course have the wheel and tire package on here, and this is kind of similar to what I'm running on the Tundra, if you guys are familiar with that truck. The one thing that made me really excited about the new 4th gen is that you can actually fit a 35 on here with very little modification. Previously on the 3rd gen, if you were trying to squish a tire like this underneath that vehicle, more than likely you would have to do a body mount chop, or in an extreme case, a body mount relocation. And I of course did that on my 3rd gen. I was really changing everything on that truck as far as suspension and wheels and tires go. But on the 4th gen, it is very easy. So before we get into that process, let's take a look at these brand new wheels here coming from Black Rhino. They have a bunch of different wheel sets coming out, and this one I am a huge fan of. I'm kind of glad that Black Rhino is slowly stepping away from that crazy Bolt military truck inspired design. And this one kind of reminds me of like an old school rally type of wheel, very similar to the Tundra, but this is a brand new wheel, and these are known as the Baharis. It's a 17-inch wheel, and it happens to clear the brakes just fine. And I wasn't exactly sure what to do for the offset, so these happen to be a plus 25. The offsets on these new trucks are drastically different than everything in the past. And I wanted to go with something a little more aggressive, but not too aggressive, where my tires would be really poking out the side, just kind of smashing all down my wrap. I do have the wrap on there to protect the paint, but I can also keep the offset a little more mild. That way I'm not completely destroying the paint underneath that wrap. Now the Baharis are currently going to be available in 3 different finishes, and I opted for one that was kind of reminiscent of the previous Shoguns that I was running on my 3rd gen. So they kind of look hyper silver, but this is actually a complete raw finish. So generally I would opt for a completely black wheel to really pull everything together, but since there are some really light tones in the gray colors of my wrap, I opted for this raw finish, and let me tell you, I'm actually a really big fan of them. Once they're cleaned up, of course they're not very clean right now because we've just been mobbing around in the San Juans, but when they are clean, they actually have a little bit of a shine to them, which is pretty neat. One of the main features that I really like about this wheel is how protected your valve stem is. Like I mentioned, we were just mobbing around the mountains for the past couple of days, and a buddy of mine actually sheared off his apex valve stem. So I do have the apex valves in here. If you're not familiar with those, they are a rapid deflate valve, and it's a really rigid product. So if you have a wheel where your valve stem sticks out a lot further, then there's a good chance that you could run into issues with actually hitting that on a rock, like my buddy did. The tire went flat in probably like 3 seconds, and we had to actually change the tire out on a trail. Now you may be looking at the wheel saying, dang, that is really recessed in there and it's nice that it's protected, but how do you get access to actually pull that valve? You can simply reach right inside of the wheel right here, gives you plenty of room to pull on that valve. And I actually don't even have these tires aired down right now because I don't have an onboard compressor yet. Like I said, the truck is pretty much stock, just wrap, wheels and tires. But once I find a company that makes a good application for a twin compressor in this truck, I'm definitely going to be doing that, and I'm looking forward to airing this down because overall the truck rides really great right from the factory. Now the Black Rhino Baharis are wrapped in a tire that I have been testing out in the Tundra for the past like 5,000 miles. We've got about 1,500 on this truck now, and these are the Firestone Destination MT2s. I've been running these tires in all sorts of conditions, both wet and dry, some sandy, and of course muddy conditions, and I'm a big fan of them already. These tires have a really thick sidewall, which is going to be nice when I get these things aired down, and there are even some features that I haven't used and probably will never use, but they are already coming from the factory with holes in the top of the tread, so I could actually stud these tires if I wanted to. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to do in snowy environments, and we will find that out here soon enough up in the mountains of Colorado. I'm hoping the tread block in here is wide enough to clear snow and ice and any kind of debris that comes with winter weather, but as of now, for a summer, spring, fall tire, these things have been phenomenal. No problems at all. And the life on these is obviously really good so far, and even on my Tundra, I have not not rotated those tires yet. They've got about 5,000 miles on them. And because they're so aggressive, I'm assuming that they may end up cupping just a little bit, so I will stay on top of tire rotation. But as of now, they are aggressive. They are not prematurely wearing in any specific way, and they are surprisingly not too loud on the road. The new 3rd Gen Tundra and the 4th Gen Tacoma has a very quiet cab, at least compared to my 3rd Gen and any older truck that I've driven around in. So that of course cuts down on a lot of road noise, but adding tires like this versus the kind of like all-terrain type of tire that came with the truck, I really don't notice that much of a difference. So that's a wheel and tire setup, but now let's talk about the fitment. How does all of this fit under here with virtually no trimming? If you've ever taken a look inside of the 4th Gen Tacoma wheel well, you will notice that there is kind of a safety crash horn. It's basically bolted right onto the front of where the frame and body mount together. Toyota finally did something good here. They did it on purpose, and you can simply remove 3 bolts, pull off that frame horn, and then in my case I ran those bolts back in because I have plenty of clearance. The tire doesn't even come close to hitting those bolts even under a full lock like you see right here. And we were able to pull off the stock wheeled tire set, throw these on, remove that, and basically didn't really cut anything. There is a lot of felt inside of this wheel well, so we did take like the most comical amount of felt off of here. It wasn't going to cause an issue. It really wasn't even that close, but I figured we might as well just clean things up in here in case the tire starts hitting this felt here. I didn't want it pulling out and making a ticking noise. So no real cutting of the plastic. You just remove that frame horn and you can run a 35. Finally, I wish this truck came with 35s from the factory because I have heard some reports of people talking about maybe some transmission heating issues. I personally haven't experienced anything like that yet, but I'm assuming that if I am driving really slow off-road, like on the way up here, there was quite a lot of traffic. I was keeping an eye on that transmission temp, and it was climbing up just a little bit, which is fairly normal, but I don't know if it's going to cause an issue yet. I'm hoping it doesn't, but if it does, there have already been people reporting on that, and I'm sure that there will be a fix out there sooner than later. So that's the wrap. Those are the wheels and tires and how you can fit a 35 on this truck. It's very easy. The only other thing that I've added is back here on the bed. Now, this is nothing new. If you guys have been following my channel for a while, you've already seen me build 2 different trucks. So, of course, when it comes to getting this thing ready for overlanding and how I like to use a truck, I need to secure the bed. What better way to do it than a company coming out of the state where I grew up in, Pennsylvania? We, of course, have a Diamondback HD cover. Now, I'm still getting used to the tiny bed here. I'm used to 6 foot plus beds, so having a 5 foot bed on here, it's kind of weird to me. We of course have a little bit more room in the cab compared to my Axis cab and my Tundra, which is a double cab. So this is the smallest, lightest Diamondback cover that I've ever run on here. I opted for the smooth black version with the cleats installed because of course, probably going to be mounting a rack and tent on here, very similar to the Tundra setup. And if you're unfamiliar with these covers, the main reason that I run these things is because 1, they are very secure. They have pick resistant locks on here, and I like keeping gear inside of my bed at all times. I can camp at a moment's notice. I can have all my camera gear in here, and it is completely secured and also protected from the elements. It's actually sprinkling on me a little bit right now. Looks like we're getting some rainstorms coming up over the ridge here. So I got this Diamondback installed and did the wheels and tires at True Automotive in Denver, Colorado, specifically for this trip. I've actually been sleeping underneath the cover here for the past 5 days, and I'm gonna bring you guys a video on how I made all that happen. It's been surprisingly very comfortable, and it kind of takes us a step above the recent video that I did, which was camping with some Amazon gear. So the tailgate on here is automatic, and if I press the handle like that, it still articulates both up and down, even with the Diamondback cover installed. You will notice inside of here, there is no mud like you see on the side of my truck. There is no water in here. We were doing a lot of water crossings on the way up here, so all of the gear that I have in here is dry, secure, and the only other accessory that I added to this Diamondback are, of course, the lights underneath here. Their main purpose is, of course, for gear light. The bed does have really bright lights in it, so at night when I have all the lights on inside of this thing, it is crazy bright. But when I was sleeping inside of the cover, I actually like to turn the bed lights off, and then I would just manually use the Diamondback lights. They run off of 4AA. The batteries last quite a long time. I really only replace them like maybe once a year. And now if we press the button on the side here, you will notice that the tailgate goes up, it will come in contact with that seal and then pull itself shut. So the seal on here is very nice. I've installed quite a few Diamondback covers, so I know what to look for. Installation probably will take you 30 to 45 minutes. If you have installed one before, definitely 30 minutes and you're good to go. The only thing that's really different when installing a Diamondback cover like this on the new 4th gen is that you have to put shims underneath the bed rails here. So you start by popping those off and inserting the shims kind of along the center here where you're actually getting the clamping force with the Diamondback cover. You do have to add a little bracket on the side here for the front lock bars. The rear lock bars, or I should say the cab side, those go right into the bed rails. And then one thing that I was curious about was how is this cover going to mate up with the bulkhead on this truck? Because if you look at the bulkhead, it is very slim. So Diamondback came up with a really good solution. You simply drop a metal bar inside of here with a seal around it. You simply loosen some bolts across the bulkhead there, slide it down into place, and then retighten them. And I'm not too particular when it comes to sealing up my Diamondback cover because I'm always outside, and the trucks, especially this one, the seals are actually really good on it compared to the 3rd gen. There's a lot less gaps. So I didn't add any extra caulking or any extra sealer, so simply just a foam pad underneath that bulkhead bar, and I positioned it so the seal lands right on the bulkhead bar and the bedside rail. It is a good idea to actually re-tighten down this cover after you're doing a bunch of off-roading, which I will be doing as soon as we get off the trails today. There are so many reasons why I choose Diamondback covers, and if you guys ever seen one, had hands-on with it, experienced them in person, then you will probably understand for yourself. Without a rack on here, it articulates, of course, so I can reach inside of my bed without lowering my tailgate. The cab side also articulates the same way, and it has an extra safety feature in there. You can put about 1,600 pounds on top of this cover. You could park a 4-wheeler on here, which is absolutely insane. I, of course, don't have any plans to do that, but it's nice to know how strong this product is and also how secure it is. Nice tight fitment on there. My gear is secured and ready to hit the road. Now for some questions that you guys had for me over on Instagram. I got a lot of questions about the interior space on this truck and how tall am I? I'm about 5'10", 5'11" on a good day. And I have my seat pushed a little bit further forward because we, of course, are kind of off-road right now. I have the seat a little bit taller. And it is a very comfortable driving position in here. I have plenty of room above my head, probably about a fist, maybe a fist and a half, depending on if you have a sunroof or not. And I've heard a lot of people being concerned about the space in here. It does feel a little bit roomier than the 3rd gen, but again, it is a mid-sized truck, so it's not going to be as roomy as, say, a Tundra. I think someone who's probably 6'4" could easily fit in here and be fairly comfortable. You would just have to run your seat further down and backwards, of course. And then a lot of people have also been asking me about these front seats, the isodynamic seats. They have suspension in the rear. And there is a lot for me to say about those. So I'm going to cover these front 2 seats in a video of its own. There's really a lot to talk about. Everyone wants to know, are they worth it? Are they comfortable? How much room do you have in the back seat? So we're going to save all of those questions for another day. Now, another super common question is, of course, about the tire fitment. I, of course, have 35s on here now, so they fit just fine. All you have to do is remove that frame horn. And then a lot of people were asking about the power delivery, how it feels pushing around a bigger tire, and what kind of miles per gallon are we seeing. So with the TRD Pro, it is, of course, the 4-cylinder turbo hybrid, and this thing has a ton of power right from the factory, a ton of torque for a tiny little truck like this. I honestly barely notice a difference so far. I've been driving this truck around in both the Eco, the normal mode, and even the sport mode, and the power delivery is still there. It feels phenomenal. As far as the miles per gallon goes, I should have actually checked this before I switched out to a 35, but when I checked via GPS, it seems like the speedo is a little bit off. Generally, if you go up to a bigger tire, you are going to be traveling faster than indicated, but this truck right now is showing that I'm traveling 2 miles an hour slower than indicated, which is strange. So I'm assuming the miles per gallon readout is not correct. After I drive it around a little bit more, I'm actually going to be driving about 500 miles today. I'm going to keep a total of miles traveled and, of course, how much fuel I'm putting in here, and I will leave the total right down here. I'm thinking it's probably around 20 miles per gallon. And of course, it's going to change depending on driving mountain passes, on-road, off-road, things like that. But I didn't buy this truck for good fuel economy. I'm hoping that the hybrid is a little bit better than the V6, which it already seems to be. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to be with the 35s on here, but I bought this thing for fun, traveling around, adventuring. I'm not too worried about spending money on fuel. Now, last but not least, a lot of people have been questioning my choice of the TRD Pro versus the Trailhunter, because you guys know what I do in a truck like this. So why did I go with the kind of go fast Baja style truck as opposed to the Trailhunter, which is more for crawling around in the mountains like you see me in right now? The main reason for that, surprisingly enough, was actually suspension. The Trailhunter comes equipped with a lot of things which are cool, but a little bit unnecessary for at least what I want to do. The Trailhunter will come with a snorkel and a big ARB bed rack in the rear, and I would be paying for things that I'm probably going to remove. I don't really want a snorkel on this truck, at least not right now. I don't want a bed rack because I knew I was going to be putting a Diamondback on there to keep all of my gear dry and secure. And then the suspension, Old Man Emu ARB kind of collaboration versus Fox. The reason I chose the Pro was really for the suspension. The QS3 or Quick Switch 3 suspension that Fox has developed. I have been a huge fan of Fox suspension. I have it on my Razor, had it on my old van, the Sat van, had it on my old truck as well. I went through 2 different iterations of Fox suspension on my 3rd gen, and I know how Fox actually develops and tests all of their products. They don't just rush suspension to the market because there's a new truck. So of course, they have been developing the QS3 suspension for a while, and for my needs, it is plenty good enough. I have been testing it out quite a lot in all the different modes, 2 being that kind of middle suspension travel. It's going to be good for bumpier and rockier roads, and then all the way up to 3, which is going to be super firm if you want to rip around through the desert, go really fast, and even jump the truck, which I haven't done yet, but I have been absolutely ripping around on trails and everything feels super planted. Fox really knows what they're doing when it comes to suspension, especially high performance suspension on a vehicle that's really designed to mob around on trails and drive fast. Now, I'm not saying that the OME suspension on the Trailhunter is bad. In reality, it might be better suited for what I'm doing with the vehicle, but at the end of the day, Fox makes a really great suspension that I have experience with, and that is why I went with the TRD Pro as opposed to the Trailhunter. This truck seems a little bit more refined to me without all of the weird overlandy add-ons, and anything that I want to add for overlanding, I'm already going to do that, so I don't want to be removing stuff from the factory to then bolt something else in its place. That is the case quite often, and of course I will be changing some stuff that is really nice from the factory on here to something a little bit more suited for my needs, but either way, I don't think you could go wrong with either truck. I was really a big fan of the Pro as soon as they released it. I'm a huge fan of the underground color, even though I did cover it up, and between the 2, this was just the right truck for me. Now, for the drivability of this truck off-road with that QS3 suspension, I have been messing around with a lot of the features in here. Really, the only thing that I haven't used yet is the rear locker because I haven't had to. For most of my testing for the past couple of weeks when I'm on trails like this, I am in 4 high. I did have to go into 4 low in one section that was really steep and rocky. Everything works as expected there. You can actually change it on the fly from 2 high to 4 high, which is nice. And one of the newest features that I did not have in my old truck is the stabilizer disconnect. Huge fan of this. I notice it night and day difference. I was really kind of skeptical of it, like, can you really tell a difference? And going from a locked front sway bar to one that is disconnected, it makes a really big difference off-road. Once you get up to about 20 miles per hour, I believe it will turn off. So if you're really mobbing around on trails, going slow and then mobbing again, you will have to disconnect the sway bar again. But I'm a really big fan of this feature. You kind of get the best of both worlds. When you're driving on highway, spirited backroad driving, you can have a lot more rigidity in the front, and when you're off-road, you can disconnect that thing and have more articulation. I've tackled all different kinds of terrain in this truck, mainly using the multi-terrain select. I just have been running it in auto. I do wish there was some kind of like a rock feature for that. I have not used the downhill assist or the crawl control yet because I just simply haven't had to, but in the future I'm definitely going to be getting this truck onto some more technical stuff because I really want to test out how all of that really works. I'm sure it's going to be very similar to the 3rd gen because that worked pretty flawlessly time and time again. And the driving characteristics of this truck is really kind of night and day different from the 3rd gen. Everything is just a little bit more refined. I'm still a really big fan of the interior, and a question that people have been asking me is, now that you know what you know, would you buy the truck again? And for me, my personal use and what I do, I would definitely buy this truck again. I'm hoping I don't run into any major bugs or issues, being that it is the first iteration of this new generation. So if and when I run into any issues, I will fill you guys in on all of that stuff, and we'll just keep on testing this thing, making slight tweaks here and there. But as of now, this is how the truck's going to be sitting. Stock everything except wheels and tires, wrap, Diamondback in the back. And if you want to see this truck in person, I will be attending Overland Expo in Loveland, Colorado. You can find this truck and myself at the Diamondback booth at the end of this month. I'd be happy to show you guys around the truck, talk to you about it a little bit more in depth. But if you can't make that and you have any questions, let me know what else you guys have in the comments down below. I will be bringing you a video on these seats, and if there's any other hot topic that you're interested in, let me know and I'll try to squeeze that into the schedule whenever I can. So if you're new to this channel, consider clicking subscribe. I make new videos every single week. As always, thank you for watching. I'll talk to you in the next one.